Hello, everyone. Feel like I've done everything in the right order today, getting on here. And it is lovely to see everyone already here. All my favorite people. We've got Nell, we've got Kathy, we've got Hazel, Nancy from California. Nancy, I loved your comment today. I left a comment on your comment that I've really love hearing all the wonderful things that you've done with your mother's quilting remains, from the blocks to the swatches to everything. And I definitely hope that you will share the picture of your block at the next Stitch and Chat. Boy, we've got people from all over. So who is stuck in the snow and who is not? I think we're going to get a real duster here. I believe it's coming tomorrow, just down the street. But up north from us, we had a huge dump. I think it was like 70 centimeters or something. It was like a atmospheric river, but with snow. Poor people were without power and snowed in. But so far, none here in Toronto. I have managed to convert my wardrobe, the coats and everything over. I've been able to find all my hats and gloves, and I think I'm fairly prepared for winter. Oh, we've got Myra here. Myra Cohn. She said she's heading to Vancouver for the last of the Taylor Swift concerts. I think that's going to be so exciting. It was exciting enough being in Toronto. I bought my ticket at the last moment. When I came home from Holland, I thought, why am I not going? I really would like to be part of it. Even though I'm not fond of her early stuff, there's some stuff in there that's really was really important to me at one point. And so I had a budget, but it seemed like all the tickets were way above that. But I returned to it a couple of days beforehand and managed to find one in my price point. I sat alone, even though I went down with friends. I was sitting by myself, and it was a concert to be part of. Yeah. You can reproduce all the music in your home or in your car or whatever, but it's just not the same when there's it's something very different and very special when 50,000 people are singing along with you, and you don't even know how many words to the music that you know until you start singing with other people. And the one thing I was really surprised about was the song "You Better Calm Down," because I was kind of, oh, that's a fun little ditty on the radio, but it was so much a stadium anthem. Like, everybody was on their feet, waving. It was just an amazing song, and it was one of the first five. She had a couple of big ones come back at the end, but that really set the tone right at the very beginning. And it was wonderful to be part of. So I hope you enjoy that. Barbara says she wore her Iceland mitts today, and they were fabulously warm. I was thinking of them today because I have my gloves. I bought gloves and I bought those mitts, and I was thinking of you because you bought the whiter version and I got the gray ones. So I knew that I could always get warmer with those Iceland mitts. Ooh, we've got Marcia from Brazil. And Susan here from North South Wales. Oh boy, there are lots of people. Many people have actually been to the concert as well. Yeah. Just something, it's just amazing to see that woman. It's just a wonderful organization, and we had a whole list of things that we could and couldn't do ahead of time. And it was obviously a compilation of all the things they had learned on the trip, all the different tours around the world. So it felt like a real well-run machine. So let me just start with some of your first questions. Karen Aikenhead sent via an email said, please discuss why some seams curve a bit. I'm not trying to sew a curve, but doing some strip sets, and when I press them open, they bend like a smile. I looked it up online. Some people say the pressure foot is too firm. too short a stitch length, but love my input. Um, Part of it is possibly that your strips are not on grain, and it's not common for quilting cotton to be on grain, so don't think you're buying seconds, but there's some at the very end of the roll and at the very beginning of the roll where it can get really out of whack, like the grain is going like this, like almost on a 45. But when you're sewing those long seams, that grain plays into it. And it also, there can be just a slight difference in the feeding of the top thread to the bottom thread, and that's what gives that twist. And you can, I find I just run my finger along it and just pull, it just pulls it out just a little bit. It's not a firm pressure, it's just enough to pull a little bit of thread back in, or push a little bit of thread back out. And then of course I press to the side. I don't press open. So you have a little bit more structure to adhere to. You've got an edge that you're pushing over as opposed to open. So it's a tricky thing. Sewing straight seams is not a big is very difficult for a beginner to do. I don't starch will help to a certain extent, but they have a tendency, they do twists like that, and it just takes a little bit of difference in tension for that to happen. It can also happen sometimes when your threads, your upper thread and your bottom thread, are different sizes as well. Hi, Gina. Okay. Let me just go here. How can I select? Julie is asked, how can I select scraps for a postage stamp quilt that are pleasing when placed together? I have a ton of scraps, but some colors just do not look good together. Is it possible to use white as a buffer between squares, or is it totally okay just to mix all the oddball scraps together? So the funny thing about scraps, especially like, you have to take them as a totality of all the scraps together. So it depends on how big your blocks are that you're making. So you saw, I'm not sure if you've seen my million bazillion quilt where I made them out of crumbs. And it has everything in there. You know, I don't like black, but there's black in there. There's white in there. There's desaturated colors. There's bright colors. Every color of the rainbow's in there. And it doesn't make a difference because when you look at it, you're looking at the whole quilt, and your eye just kind of equalizes everything together. But your scraps will have a tendency to be just a reflection of the colors that you like because they're your scraps and they're the fabrics that you have chosen to make quilts out of. So try not to be too critical of them when they're just side by side. But that said, sometimes it just doesn't give you any enjoyment to do them just randomly like that. I found that when I was making 4 patches, I was just trying to do a light value and a dark value, and it didn't give me any pleasure. I didn't find I liked the look of the blocks. So then I just started doing them with colors. So I made 4 patches out of red, 4 patches out of blue, and just as they came in, I just would group them in 4 and 4. So if you're doing a postage size quilt, you can make some limiters in there. Instead of it just being everything, you can choose just to do warm colors. You can choose just to do, the opposite of that, cool colors. But you could just do blue and yellows, or you could just do green and reds, the high complementary colors. You can also you suggested white. You can also have that in there. Maybe have it in the center of every block, and that kind of just gives your eye a place to rest, and just say, okay, here's white in the middle. Or you could do it with red, you could do it with any color, but your eye will see that consistency through all of them and make that connection, and it'll be less tiresome on the eyes. In my million bazillion quilt, I chose a very light blue, actually sort of a mid-tone blue, very narrow pieces just to sash the strips together, and that helped give the quilt some structure. Not a lot, but just enough to say, okay, these things are not just, they just didn't go boom like that. There's some structure to the quilt itself. So it's up to your personal taste. So if you do white, that sounds very pretty, or you do black, it gives you more of a stained glass type look. And I've done it with just warm colors. I've done it with just cool colors. And don't worry about one warm color sneaking in with the cool colors and one cool color sneaking in with the warm colors. As long as the majority of them are in that category that you've chosen, it will take care of itself when it's done. Patty Stein has asked, she couldn't tell from the video, but how did I quilt postcards from Toronto? I think I showed that in the video finished, but I did a pantograph on it. Yeah. I've already given the quilt away, otherwise I'd go grab it. Hattie Hendricks is asked, I would like to know the best way and the best product for washing my quilting fabrics. I'm fairly new to quilting and I want to do it right. And what do you think of color catchers? So when we wash our quilts, we're trying to remove the dirt from it, right? And the sweat and things like that. So, but you're also trying to deal with the quilt itself. So like when you're pre-washing fabrics, you do not need to use soap. You just need to get them wet and rinse them, and that should be good enough to shrink them, unless you have a severe allergy to some of the components that go in the quilting cotton. You don't even need soap at the beginning when you're washing, pre-washing. You want to use cold water. You've got to worry about the batting that's on the inside, like wool and cotton are going to shrink a lot. Polyesters and bamboo. I've done this whole video on that. I think it's bamboo and silk do not, and not bamboo. Polyester and silk don't shrink so much, but the quilting cotton will if you haven't pre-washed them. So you've got to look after that. So I think right at the moment, most people put their quilts in the washing machine on a cold water setting, and they use whatever detergent they have. They'll throw in some color catchers because fabrics will bleed, and that will help pick up any loose color. And then just toss them in the dryer on an eco setting. So I don't know how old your dryer is, but an eco setting is just there's a lot of airflow, but there's not a lot of heat, and that's how I do it. So I just use I have Blue Land tablets, which I do my laundry with, and I know people have used Tide and things like that. If you have a more delicate quilt, if you've got more of an antique quilt, or just one with fancier stitching or small piecing, or just something that you want to take more care of, I would put it in the bathtub and I would use Dawn. That's just a nice mild soap. Don't use any one with any of the extra stuff in it. Just use the plain ordinary Dawn, and that will lift some of those stains out of it for you. And then you can just gently squeeze it and get the soap through it, and that will release the dirt. If it begins to bleed while it's in your bathtub, you just rinse it. You just keep rinsing it until all the color is gone, and then let it dry. So you'll need to find some place to let it dry. Not sure whether, it's not really the time of year up where we are to put it outside, but you can use towels and everything to roll it up and let it dry that way. So, but like I know when my children were small, we had some quilts that we just threw in the wash over and over and again. They were not made to last 200 years. They were made to be used and be comfortable with, and they had a purpose, and they now sit in a memory box that we'll bring out when the next generation arrives, but they're not meant to last 200 years. So no. I think I've answered that one. Okay. Hazel Ann has asked me, do I bury my threads, trim them, or something else? Have you ever quilted? Well, we'll just take that question first. So do you bury my threads? Yes, I bury my threads. When I first started, I did not. I would just snip them, and what it causes seems to pull apart. So I always trim them, and I find that self-threading needle is the thing that made the difference for me. When I found that and I could make it a quick activity, that's what I do. As soon as I've made those threads and sewn a little bit beyond, I go back and I tuck those things in right away. I don't tie a knot, but I do bury them. Laura Wagner has asked, how long have I been quilting? I think since 2007. Yeah. I didn't really pick up any steam until about 2013 or 15. Yeah. I told you about the Taylor Swift concert. It was so close to the concert, I did not get a chance to make many bracelets, any bracelets, in fact. But very kindly, some people gave me some anyways. So I've got this one that says White Horse on it, and I've got another one that says Toronto. So, yeah. So I'm going to be doing what I see people doing online. When I was at the dollar store the other day, I just got myself a couple of plastic bottles, and I collect beads over time. These ones, they become a hodgepodge, like 4 or 5 end up in the same one. So I'm going to drop those in the bottom. I'm going to put these on top, and then they gave us all these light switches that they're pretty useless now, but I'm going to use that ribbon as the ribbon for the top of the ornament. So I'm also going to make one just for me, just get it done for the Iceland trip. So I have some fabric. When you're doing this type of ornament where it's going to see both sides, quilting cotton really isn't the best to be dropping in because one side of the fabric is printed and the other side's not. So the quilt that I made for the class for Iceland was made out of solids. So I'm just going to take pieces and feed them. I'm going to make them into small pieces that get through the top, and I'm going to throw those in, and then I'm going to put one of my Just Get It Done things on it. And I'll throw that in with that. So then I'll have 2 ornaments. Good memories this year. Really good memories. Gina Olive has asked, greetings from Houston. Can you help me troubleshoot my thread shredding issues? 30 weight thread on a table mount long arm. Size 18 needle upgraded from a size 16. Quilting swirls, free motion, it still shreds at the needle. Well, it could just be that you have old thread. If it's shredding at the needle, it means there's too much friction of it going through the eye of the needle down into the fabric and back up. So if this was my what do you call it? My domestic machine, I would be sure to be using a denim needle because I know that it has a big hole in it. It's made for those bigger threads. But if you're just using an irregular needle, it may not be able to handle that size. So there's 2 things. It could be that your thread is old, or it can, even when you buy it, it could be old. Like they say that the shelf life of thread is like 10 years before it begins to lose its strength. And it could be sitting on the shelf, and it could have been sitting in the warehouse for so many years. So you may think, oh, it's only 3 years old, but there's been accumulation of time that it's been made. And I have that problem on my long arm that I can use 2 bolt things of thread, and I can barely get anywhere with one, and the other one doesn't give me any grief whatsoever. And I have just put that down to it's just not a great spool of thread. So there's that possibility. If you are able to sew it on your domestic machine, but not on your long arm, then there. I'm just trying to think of with your needle. You've got a table mount long arm. So that I think that means that you're using a domestic machine. But those are the things. So it can not be making a big enough hole in your fabric, or it can be shredding through the hole in the needle. I'm not sure if anybody else has any other ideas. I know I've done 30 weight thread. I've actually even done 12 weight thread through an 8-inch hole. And the denim needle will handle that. So just check those type of things. Oh, got Sleepy Cat here from London, UK. Look at that, an AccuQuilt. Look at perfection. Okay. Let's see. What is the pattern for the quilt on my back wall? This is my Capella cluster quilt, and it will be available next summer. Yeah, I have it up here because I was photographing it for a couple of quilt shows that I've entered it in, and I just haven't taken it down because I like it so much. January, yes, the January Declutter Challenge is on for January 1st. November was just a very, I'm not going to say awful, but it was a very demanding month for me. I was still recovering from my wrist and my foot being injured. I had 2 family members in the hospital, and though it wasn't a critical issue, it took a lot of time, and routines change and things like that. Just this past week, I've been babysitting my granddog because my daughter and her husband are moving back to Ontario from Quebec. So, it's just been challenging. So I'm hoping to have everything up and ready for Friday on the Declutter Challenge. I think it's Ogling, I believe, or Laura Lee, has asked, where do you get the cart that you have your ironing board on? That was one of my very first videos. That was my DIY ironing board. I'm not sure if Gina has access to that link and she can drop it in the comments. It was, I made it because I was sewing in my bedroom, and I just didn't have enough space. All my sewing stuff was jammed into my bedroom because our 3rd child came back from university, and instead of going off into the world, he decided to stay. So that was my spot. And I did not want an ugly ironing board. I couldn't afford to have just a single-use thing there. So I made it out of racking. And I chose more expensive racking than I would have if I did it now in this studio, because I wanted it to have a certain look. It's bronze, it's heavy duty, and I wanted it with the 4 shelves in it. So I ended up buying a tall unit and then cutting it down so it was at the right height for me. And yeah, one of my favorite things, every time I use it, I go, why would anybody have another type of ironing board? Because they're just so rickety and unstable. My iron used to fall off it. People used to hit it and it would fall over. And I just think ironing board on wheels is the way to go. And I know there's lots of people that follow me that have done variations of that. They've done it with a dresser. They've done it with filing cabinets. And they agree, you got to have your ironing board doing double duty. And I think I recovered it once just recently. I think it was just back in January I recovered it. But I made the top. It's all in the video. Mary Ann Quinn has said, what makes a fabric modern? I have to bring 4 fat quarters of modern fabric to the December Guild meeting for a swap. So there's a difference between modern art and what people talk about being modern sewing. So part of modern quilting is just solids for one, um, and look to designers that do. They're considered modern quilters like Libs Elliott, Ruby Star, Cotton and Steel are some of them. Um, I think modern also is not too flowery. It's more about geometrics and some quirky little motifs that are here and there. Um, but there's a real fuzzy middle. Like you can say, "Oh, this is traditional and this is modern," but there can be a real fuzzy middle of what modern is. So you're not looking. I I wouldn't even say that you're not looking for muted tones because there's a lot of modern people that like to use those dusty pinks and dusty blues, um, but they use it in a different way than traditional quilters do. So I'm just wondering where you would grab those from. I would take a check online and just check with some of the things that they have. Um, I'm sure you probably have some modern fabrics in your stash if you've been quilting for a while, and you would they would probably do. But think bright. Um, they modern isn't often warm either. The modern I find often goes to the cool side. Yeah, it's hard to without the fabric in front of me. It's hard to tell you, unfortunately. Tandy Mages has said, "Do I have to use batting in the middle?" No, you don't have to use batting in the middle. Uh, you can use fleece, you can use flannel, you can use nothing, you can use a sheet, but it's going to feel different than if you do use batting. And last night, I got to sleep under a quilt that I gave my dad that had double batting in it, and that has another feel as well. So I did that a couple of months ago. I did a quilt. I made it with a minky back, and I didn't use anything on the inside. And if you are in a like a hot climate, and you want a cool quilt, it doesn't have a lot of body behind it, but I could see how that would be quite useful. I did like the feeling of the flannel on the inside. It was a lightweight quilt for people who like light quilts, but make sure you pre-wash the flannel before you use it because it's going to shrink a lot. Um, and then personally, I like heavy quilts. If I could do 3 layers of batting, I would love to do 3 layers of batting because I just like that weight. But I people after I did the batting video, people kept asking me, so what do I buy? Well, my preference is to buy the thickest 100% cotton batting that I can find. And I've used them all. So I've used Quilter's Dream, I've used Hobbs, I've used Warm and Natural, but it's just what I can find at the time because there's a big freight cost to shipping those big rolls of batting, and they don't, and not everywhere brings them nearby. So I'm just choosing what's available in that kind of category. So I've moved through a couple of different brands. Denise Clemens has asked, did the top thread and the bottom thread have to be the same weight to get a proper seam? Nope. Nope. In fact, like the pre-wound bobbins are often 60 weight, and you can use a 50 weight in the top or 30 weight in the top. But anytime you're not using the same type, you may have just some adjustments in tension that you have to do. So just be aware of that. I think it's Me Yule asks, I wonder if I use a dark binding like black, charcoal, or dark navy. I wonder if it will look faded over time against a gray quilt. Well, your gray is going to fade as well. So, and it depends on how many times you wash it. And I think friction will have more to do with it as well. But you can always change the batting. and not the batting, the binding. Um, if in a if in 10 years from now the binding is beginning to fray or you find it dull, you can just change it out and put a new one on. That's not a big deal. Well, it's somewhat of a deal, but I'm just saying it's something that you can deal with. Somebody asked, what does the Declutter Challenge entail? Okay, so this is our 6th year or 5th year? 5th year, I believe, of doing the Declutter Challenge. It's 21 days, and we go through your sewing room category by category. And we do by category so it doesn't fatigue your brain. When you go into a space and you start, you put this away and then you're wondering about these threads. Are you going to use them? You're not sure whether you're going to keep them. They're old. They were donated to you. And then you look at your rotary cutters and you go, oh, where's the other one that goes with that? All those very different decisions are very taxing on the brain. So what we're doing is we're going through it category by category. So you're just asking the same question. And one, you can talk to other people who have done it. It's a lot easier to do. And we work in 15-minute increments as you have them. And there's nothing better than a decluttered sewing room to be creative in. You're getting rid of all these items that don't serve you anymore. And you've evolved over time. So you might have done scrapbooking at one time, but you're never going to do it again. So you think, okay, so let's remove that from our space. But you could be, you may need to bring things in that you like pertain to what you're doing right now. So you need to make space for that. So it comes from a point of view of capacity. You've got a shelf, you're going to put all your books on it, but all your books have to fit just on this shelf because you need these other shelves to put your fabric on, and you need these shelves over here to keep your batting on. So looking at it from a capacity point of view helps you part from the things that you're no longer using. And just recognize that the decisions that you made last year can be different this year. And I have found that there's been items that have been slowly going out the door. You can't do it the first year because there's just too many mental gymnastics that you have to do with it. You kind of like it, or you're still attached to a dream that you may actually do or use that again. Before it comes, you keep asking that question and you realize maybe after the 4th year, maybe I'm really never going to do that again. And you can part with it. So. Ooh, Barbara Lazar has asked, would you please share some highlights about the Indonesian cruise? I can't because we're just still putting the last dots and crossing the T's on that. We land in Singapore. We will be in Singapore for 3 days, I believe. Then there's a travel day to Java. There's a couple of amazing cultural centers or like UNESCO heritage sites that Ray is anxious for us to see. He says that we're just going to be bowled over from it. We'll be sitting lunch and just looking at this whole amazing temple complex. So we're 2 days on Java, and then we're going to spend 8 days in Bali. And the hope of we're trying to get to a couple of different boutique places. And of course, there's markets, and we're going to end it with maybe a little bit of R&R at a spa. Little eat, love, pray at the end. So, we should have it hopefully by the end of the week. Karen A has asked, do I still love my cordless iron? Yes. I'm never giving that back. Panasonic just sent me another one today for me to test drive, but it is a lovely, it just doesn't get in the way anymore. Like I used to find the cord, I'm one that fell off the ironing board all the time because you'd turn some way or whatever and the cord would drag it off. And I just like the way I'm able to access the fabric through both arms. It's not just a one-hand thing. I can use this hand to when it's necessary, and I can take it totally off my ironing station entirely and put it over in a corner. Well, and then as I'm doing big tops is what I'm saying. It doesn't get in the way, so I love my iron. Yeah. Sarah Pitcher has asked, am I going to QuiltCon this year? Yes, I am. I have already got my accommodation, and I bought my tickets a couple of days ago, and I had my airplane ticket about a month ago. No, a couple of months ago, I bought my airplane ticket. So yeah, I'm going to Phoenix. I haven't been to Phoenix in a long time. I'm sure it's changed a lot, and I hear it's very hot. So I think in the middle of February, I might be looking forward to that. Diane Miller. She says, from my crew, thank you, Diane. I'm quilting a Dresden tree skirt, and I'm almost done, but I'm not liking how it looks finished. Do I keep it, learn from it, or give it away? Has this happened to you? Yeah, it's not with a Dresden tree skirt, but with other projects. I had a video, not this year, last year, and it was called When to Quit. And I was looking at some things that were in my UFO pile, and just deciding, am I going forward with it or am I going back? And I had a Halloween quilt that I thought I should keep. It was my very first one. Forgot that I had even started it. I had all sorts of different things, and I was trying to keep it just because I could say this was my very first quilt. But I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. And the more I worked on it, the more I realized I really hated it. So I just let it go. I let it go. And I've worked on a couple of different projects where you just realize it's never going to get any better. But I've also worked on projects that I thought, I'm just going to let this one go, but I'm going to give it 5 minutes. And then my whole brain changed about it. So sometimes it's when you're working on it. That's when you feel, are you ever going to put it up in your house? Is there somebody that you can donate it to that would enjoy it in their home? You do not have to keep everything you make. Bubbly Bubba, I love that handle. Do you do a lot of hand sewing? I just got into sewing last week when I got all my grandma's sewing stuff. I go through periods of hand sewing, and I find when life gets tough, that's when I do a lot of hand sewing. I had injured my hand a couple of months ago, so I definitely have not been doing any hand sewing recently as I've waited for my thumb to come back to me. But part of it is just where I am right now in my quilting. I finished a really big, I think it was an 8-year project by the time I finished, maybe 6. I finally finished that one, and I haven't got the brain capacity yet to lay out the next one that's going to happen. I've got a couple of ideas. I bought a really nice applique pattern in Holland, and I've got Dutch heritage fabrics that I like to make it out of. So that's just part of that process for me. I just need to figure out what I'm doing and give myself a roadmap, and then I dive into it. But other people use sew slowing on a daily basis, and it just is really mentally a very good mental exercise for them. It calms them down, it helps them deal with their anxiety, and it's a pace that they enjoy working at. And I was trying to help a friend of a friend finish a quilt, and he says, do you know any hand quilting? I said, oh, forget about that. Come on over here, use my long arm, and we'll get it done, and it'll be done. He says, no, I want to hand quilt it. So, there's a definite joy that comes from hand sewing that you don't need to rush. And there's Cantha quilting. I did my interview with Ekka Call a couple of weeks ago, but here's a beautiful handkerchief that Cheryl gave me on my as a gift when we arrived in Holland, and it has some beautiful big stitch quilting on it. And yeah, so there's lots of nice little hand sewing projects you can do. There's Emma from Vintage Sewing Box. I'm amazed at all the things that she does, and constantly with not just EPP but other hand sewing. So um, part of your first years of quilting is figuring out what you like to do. Do you like to do the shashiko and the darning, the repairs and things like that? Do you like to work with all those colored threads? And go for it. Go for it, because there's lots of joy in it. Joyce has asked, have I ever tried the glow ruler? I wasn't too impressed. Doesn't make cutting any easier. I have not even heard of the glow ruler. I'm going to have to look that up. Maybe they'll have one at QuiltCon that I can take for a test drive and see what it's like. So, and if it's not helping you, yeah, find a new home for it. Tammy Tash asks, what did you do before content creation? I was an inventory manager, and my husband and I had a business, and I did all the accounting and the business side of it, the paperwork side of it, and I did project management too. So those were the type of jobs I loved to do. How to add fabric to dress up my plain heavy curtains? Linda Black it's an abbreviated question. Linda, you're just going to have to explain a little bit more what you mean by how to add fabric to dress up my plain heavy curtains. Are you talking about doing some applique or some ridge applique or sewing on some strips, or what exactly are you thinking? Catherine Tucci, good evening from Dunnville, Ontario, not too far away. What quilt patterns, colors do you find irresistible? So the part of the color wheel that I like to play in is just south of the pure hue. I don't like it dusty, but I like it deep. I was lucky enough when I was in the dollar store this week that I came across a palette. This is just paper, but this is the range of colors that I like. So it's not the bright red. It's just a little bit darker than that. And you can see it in my quilt here. And I'm not really attracted to blue, but I really like teal. And not really attracted to purple, but I really love raspberry. I find that I don't like that pure color, like not a pure yellow, but I love the ones on either side, that lime green or like a pumpkin. And that's where I like to play. I'm not attracted to a lot of patterns anymore, just because, like commercial patterns anymore, just because I like to make my own. And I haven't bought a commercial pattern in a little while. But I love just playing. Like I love pre-quilt, where I can just go in there. It's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in the last couple of years is I don't have to make every idea I have. Like the fun of designing and playing with the color and the layout can be an end to itself, and only a couple of those ideas have to actually be made. So I play and I play, and when I find one that really hits a sweet spot, that's the one I'll go make. You've heard me talk about pre-quilt before. They're doing amazing things over there. Laura's actually talking to me tomorrow about some new things that they've done, so I'm looking forward to hearing about it. But that's what I do. Like maybe once or twice a month, I just sit down and play with color and layouts. And there are so many beautiful quilts out there. There's very few that I ever look at and say, oh, no. Even if it's not my colors, even if it's not a style that I would make myself, there's still so much beauty in so many quilts. I never get tired of seeing them come through my feed. And I'm always fascinated how color affects patterns. Like I did the Long Time Gone quilt, that's a Jen Kingwell quilt, in a quilt-along with Gnome Angel many years ago. But of course it takes time for everybody to finish off their quilts, and so I continue to see them come through my Instagram feed, and I'm always shocked at how different they are from what I made. and they're different from each other. And part of analyzing that, and you can tell I like to analyze things, is learning how to play with color. So yeah, I do. I love color. I love the first part of the quilt. Once I've made the blocks, my enjoyment of making the quilt goes down. And it goes down quickly as I get to the end. Yeah, that's what I like. Okay, so let me just tell you about a couple of things I've got going, in case you've missed them. I was not busy in the beginning of November. I didn't have a lot of things going on, but I had a lot of, where did it happen to my things? Did I put them in the wrong one? I had a lot of things going on, but I've just recently made a lot of videos. So let me just, I think they might be in this wrong spot here. No, I've lost this. Isn't that funny? Okay, I've lost them. Let me just see if I can pull them up back here. So if you don't know, I have made a video, it dropped today, on the dollar store. And had a lot of fun making that. It came to me as I was editing the other video, and I got enough support from everyone that I continued to, I just went with it. And it's been a little while since I've made a dollar store hack one, and that was a lot of fun. Where's the other one? Let me just see my downloads here. Did this all on my other computer. A couple of weeks ago, I did Batting 101. That is another, just meant to be a resource. I did a lot of experiments with different types of batting, and what things you need to worry about and what things you don't need to worry about. It's kind of funny how they talk, the batting manufacturers talk about batting from their point of view. This is what they will do. But I really think that the things that, how we should be looking at them, are different. So take a look at cost, take a look at purpose that you're using, take a look at availability, take a look at just how many scraps you want to keep. You know, like, it's fine and dandy to say, oh, this needs to be wool, and that needs to be silk, and this needs to be bamboo. But are you really going to keep all those all those different types of scraps? In fact, I have just been frankenbatting the heck out of my scrap pile here. I've had so many quilts over the past 2 years, and my last 3 quilts. And I think I may get to about 10 that I can make out of all this frankenbatting. So thank you, Lynn. You always give me enough just to get a coffee. Thank you so much. And there's another one. Where is my dollar? Not that. I am missing one here. And I've just closed that down. There it is. Here we go. And then last week I did my annual gifts for quilters. So people often ask, where do I get all these ideas? Well, I collect them over the year. And it's amazing how, you know, you've been working on it and working on it and working on it. And then suddenly it's time for it to take flight. I must say that from the previous years, I do not, like, there's nothing that I really regret buying or suggesting. Sorry, I've got a sign in here that's not working. So I would encourage you, take a look at all the years, because it's just something, I'm just trying to find good, long-lasting things that you can use. If in doubt, like, one of the first things I always suggest is all these things that don't have any bling appeal, but you do need them, like rotary blades, sewing machine needles, excuse me, sometimes, you know, just basic thread. Ask for those from people that, you know, you just don't want another porcelain doll or something like that. Try and direct them into something like that. So for the next year, you don't need to worry about buying those things, because those things make a big difference in the quality of your work. But nobody ever says, oh boy, you used a really good needle on this one, didn't you? Or boy, your rotary blade was sharp when you made these straight lines. But you do need them to do that. So that's where I always start. Don't buy your forever tools if you're a brand new beginner. You are going to be working on all sorts of different types of projects. You're probably going to buy too many projects, like we all do. But through these different projects you're going to work on, and those things that you'll attempt, you'll understand what type of quilting you want to do, and therefore what you actually need to buy. If you're just doing just straight piecing, you may never need those pinking shears. But if you're going to be doing some other different types of things where you're doing with curves and that, they will come in handy. With some other things, you need a walking foot for your machine if you're going to be doing quilting on your home machine. But if you're not doing quilting on your home machine and you're sending it out to a long armor, that may be something that you can forego. So wait a little while for those forever tools. And going to a show like QuiltCon or Quilt Canada, or a couple that I pulled out, Road to California or Paducah, or even just some of your local stores, there will be vendors there that will have these things that you can take for a test drive. So you don't buy them without trying them. Feel whether the scissors feel good in your hand, or that grip on the rotary blade. And you can see whether that magic erase pen actually works the way you want it to do, or you have the dexterity to use those particular types of pins or whatever, or that handcrafted stitch ripper isn't too heavy for your hand. So those are all those things that you find out when you get to walk around a vendor hall and touch things. And yeah, I highly recommend, once you get to a certain point, to get out there and try and play with these things. Well, this is our last Q&A for the year. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing up every month. Such a wonderful group of people, and every month there's a new person that just jumps in and with both feet, and it's just so lovely to see everyone being so kind to each other. I say this every month, but I truly mean it. This community and watching everyone support each other is such a wonderful feeling. And just like a Taylor Swift concert, we're all in here with the same problems, and we can all help each other. So thank you so much. Give a shout out to Gina in there. She's just so good at helping get all those links out there, because I just don't have enough hands to do that, and helping everyone direct them where they need to be, and keeping up and reminding me what I need to do as well. So take care, everyone. Have a very safe, happy holiday. I know some of you just had a holiday last week, but we're kind of in a snowball situation heading towards the last 2 weeks of the year. No matter what you celebrate, life is going to be busy this next month. So take care, everyone. I'm going to see you soon in another video. I've got a couple, I've been so creative just this past little while. I'm going to have a number before Christmas. So take care, and we'll see you in the Declutter Challenge this year.